Welcome back to Console Crapshoot, where we spin a wheel to play a random video game on original hardware. We got the friggin' Game Boy Advance last week. That was a new one. I'm honestly not a fan of doing episodes on handhelds, so let's hope for a good one. Oh hell yeah, we got the Panasonic 3DO. We haven't gotten this one yet. The 3DO was an interesting system during a dark time in video games. 163 games on this wheel. Oh, Star Control 2. From what I understand, it's a cult classic. This game is often mentioned as best PC games of all time. I've seen it on best video games of all time lists. And it's one of those where you see the name on the list and you're like, what is it? I've never heard of this. First, let's try to squeeze in a little info about the 3DO since it's the first time we've had it. Really quickly, the 3DO was kind of an experiment. A bunch of electronics companies got together, Panasonic being the main one, and they said the video game console business, it's messy. Why do we have games that can only be played on Sega and only be played on Nintendo? Why aren't video game systems more like VCRs or CD players? The technology is a standard, and you can have a VCR made by Sony, made by Zenith, Hitachi. We all agree on a standard, and that way we can all make our own hardware, but games will play on all of our hardware. It's really not a bad idea. There was a lot of different 3DOs from different companies. This was attempted. If there's one standardized kind of hardware, then that limits how creative you can get. Playing a movie is not the same as an interactive experience of playing a game, and ultimately it didn't work, but interesting thought exercise. Okay, now on to Star Control 2. When I popped this game in, it reminded me of a couple of things right off the bat. First of all, really reminded me of Starflight for the Sega Genesis. I had it as a kid, and I learned that it was a big influence on Star Control. Also reminds me of Star Wars Rebellion. This was a PC game where you just looked at a bunch of space and planets and you managed resources. Sounds really boring, but if you have that kind of brain where that ticks a box for you and you enjoy that kind of thing like I do, the game is awesome. That's what most of this game is you're going down to planets and you're collecting resources. You're mining, you take your rover down to planets and you grind away like that. And you might already be thinking that Mass Effect must have been influenced by this game. I mean, the first Mass Effect, you take a rover down to the planets and you mine for materials. Now, that's notoriously a lot of people's least favorite part of Mass Effect, which is why they got rid of it. But I mean, even in parts 2 and 3 of Mass Effect, you go around the galaxy and send probes down to mine. I took a lot of pride in mining every single planet until they were depleted. Also, this seems to be a clear influence on FTL, if you ever played FTL. So I got into this game, and the story is really quite interesting. You represent a human settlement that's been away from Earth for a long time, and the planet they've been on discovers an ancient ship, and you take that ship back to Earth, and you realize Earth has been taken over by aliens, and you slowly start to build up the resources and build up a coalition of other aliens that want to fight alongside you. You slowly upgrade your ship, you build all these relationships, and then you take on the aliens who enslaved Earth. If you're a big nerd, if you're a big sci-fi person, that sounds like heaven to you. Once you open up the galaxy map, each one of these dots is a solar system with planets, and you can go to every single one of them. You could play this game for decades and come across new things, and while I'm talking about that, people have played this game for decades. There's a thriving fan community that's still playing this game to this day, still modding this game, still coming out with versions of this game because they got the original source code for this 3DO version. And actually, I'm not playing the original 3DO version here. I'm playing a slightly upgraded version that took the 3DO version and made some changes to it. It's called Star Control 2: The Urquan Masters. But I'm playing it on my 3DO. Anyway, you could play this game 100 times and it's a different sort of playthrough every time. There's a limited amount of time to do what you have to do, so you can never do everything in one playthrough. I started digging. I came across Reddit threads where, people talk about go to these coordinates all the way on this corner of the map and then wait here and you have to be there on this specific day or something, and this happens, and people have been playing the game for years, didn't know about it. It's amazing. And again, if you're a sci-fi fan, if you're a Star Trek fan, this is the best Star Trek game that's ever been made. Here's a game that captures the feeling of open exploration, more so I feel like than games like No Man's Sky or Starfield, and lore, like crazy amounts of lore. I thought Mass Effect had a lot of lore that you could learn about all the races and stuff. This game, I mean, depending on where you are and where you go at a specific time, there's so much to learn. You have conversations with races, and depending on what you say, you can learn different things, or you can piss them off and get into a war with them. You could recruit them to your side, and they might be integral in the end of the game. Modern games, you usually learn something new from an alien, and then it makes a quest log entry, and then you can go back to it and say, oh, what was I supposed to do? Or there's missions and quests get updated. This game, you probably need a notebook to play, because you have a conversation with a race and they say the coordinates to their home planet and they just keep talking. And if you didn't write that down, then you're shit out of luck. It's dated, but it's so ahead of its time at the same time. I can't really do this justice. It's gonna come across looking a little boring in the video, a little bland. And if this isn't your kind of game, it's gonna be boring for you. This is not for everybody. There's nothing wrong with that. No game should be. But if what I'm saying here is resonating with you, you should look into Star Control 2. But you can also download a free version of Star Control 2, the Urquan Masters HD. Fans got together and redid the art assets, and it's free. I played this longer than I usually play a game for an episode on this show, but I could not put it down. I wanted to keep exploring. When I finally decided this is enough, I have to edit an episode, I started watching YouTube videos. I went down a rabbit hole of Star Control 2 YouTube videos while I was editing. This is a gem. This is something I wasn't expecting, especially on the 3DO. I mean, there's some decent games on the 3DO. There's a couple of gems here and there, but nothing quite like this. This was very unexpected. And I know it's really a PC game, so when I learned that, I was like, oh, it's gonna suck using a 3DO controller. I really wish I could play this with a mouse and keyboard. But no, they kind of got that too, that the controller's not bad. They nailed the control. A lot of PC players like this version. Some people say it's the superior one. So yeah, I'm gushing. I don't know where to stop here, but let's just give the verdict to Star Control 2 for the Panasonic 3DO. I was surprised by it. I recommend it, but only if this is your kind of thing. I would bet all of my consoles that someone that designed Mass Effect, or FTL, but definitely Mass Effect, played this game, and they wanted to bring the things they loved about this game into a more modern experience. It might not be for everybody, but for me, this is a 5 out of 5 with a bullet. I don't know if it's the best game we've played on this show. I'd have to think about that, but it's absolutely, without a doubt, the most underrated game we've had on this show. If you have a 3DO and you can get this, play it. But most of you probably have a PC, I imagine. So do your thing, internet. Maybe we can move the needle on the $1.35 sale for Star Control 1 or 2 on Steam. I would love to be responsible for that. This was a real treat for me and Carl. Stuff like this makes doing this show really, really cool. I probably would have never gotten around to trying this. If this sounds like it's in your wheelhouse and you want to give it a try because of this, let me know. If you already know this game, let me know. Let's talk in the comments, and thanks again. We'll see you guys next week.
Jumper Wap is the hot light.